This episode of the Hopper in the Morning Show is brought to you by the law offices of Mello and Sarsfield, Sierra Vista Exterminators, and our friend, Rick Leland.
Welcome to the Hopper in the Morning Show, here at TalkToHopper.com. It's the same show, just new digs and no rules. Here's Hopper in the Morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 11th, 2018. Here's a look at what's happening in the South Valley. We begin with a recent report on Tulare County supposedly being the least educated area in the U.S. Well, that might have been statistically accurate, but also very misleading. That is according to Adam Peck. Adam Peck, of course, executive director of the Workforce Investment Board in Tulare County. He said in a recent annual report of America's most and least educated cities, continually ranks the Visalia-Porterville metropolitan area, statistical area that is, at the bottom of the list. However, it only looks at the highest degree obtained by the entire adult population, and not the highest degree obtained by students educated in Tulare County. Now, apparently, the Visalia-Porterville MSA ranking, it ranked dead last in adults ages 25 and older with a bachelor's degree or higher, quality of the public school system, and racial and gender gaps in local education. All of that was put into this report. Now, this led to an overall ranking of number 150 out of how many? 150 MSAs across the nation, and the dubious distinction, if you will, of being America's least educated area. However, now, Adam Peck said the ranking is an accurate representation of adult population living in Tulare County. However, not of those who are educated in the local public school system. And Mr. Peck points out that the Tulare County graduation rate, by the way, is 88.7%. which is higher than the statewide average of 86.6%, by the way. More than 43% of all Tulare County high school seniors graduate meeting all of the entrance requirements for both California's university systems. And finally, Peck said that the numbers are not wrong, but they certainly are not read properly either, and they're not representative of the local area at all. Some other news this morning now. Visalia police searched for the person suspected of robbing a Visalia convenience store. Happened early yesterday morning. As a matter of fact, it was about 1:15 in the morning when the police department of Visalia were called to the 7-Eleven. This one located at the corner of Tulare Avenue and Mooney Boulevard with reports of a robbery. Now, upon arrival, officers learned an unidentified suspect. He was armed with a handgun. He had entered the store and demanded cash from the clerk. Suspect then fled the store on foot with an undetermined amount of cash. Suspect was not located. That is according to Sergeant Damon Maurice with the Visalia PD. Nobody was injured during the robbery, luckily, though, and if anybody has information regarding anything more on this incident, you are urged to contact the Visalia Police Department. Kyle?
Well, according to a report in the local Sun Gazette, a complaint has been filed with the Fair Political Practices Commission, or FPPC, against Tulare Councilman Greg Nunley for a lack of filing his Form 700 Statement of Economic Interests due on April 2nd. The complaint was filed by Tulare resident David Frost through his Visalia attorney, Michael Lampe. According to the newspaper report, there were numerous attempts by the city clerk's office to get them filed, but to no avail. As reported in the Sun Gazette article on September 7th, Tulare Councilman Greg Nunley refutes all issues in recent lawsuit charges against him and had told the reporter that he had dropped off the report to City Hall, but was going to drop off another copy within a week. To date, City Hall has not received this, according to the Deputy City Clerk and Records Coordinator for Tulare. The only Form 700 the city has on file from Councilman Nunley is from January 3rd, 2017, when he assumed office. Hopper?
Well, Lindsay City Council holding a public ceremony tonight. It'll be held during their regularly scheduled meeting, during which time City Clerk there, Brett Harmon, will swear in 3 brand new public safety sergeants. Public comment, by the way, will also be open before the swearing-in ceremony. Locals there are encouraged to speak about any matter under the jurisdiction of the council. And, by the way, the city council members will also give reports on other events, activities, or matters that the public should know about. And finally, city staff will also be giving reports on any matters pertaining to the city of Lindsay. A small consent calendar will be up for potential approval. Only 5 items fill tonight's consent calendar in the city of Lindsay.
Some local residents were on their way home Sunday when they were stopped by a Visalia police officer. What the officer discovered inside that vehicle took 3 people inside to jail. Officers said that they were in close proximity to the 1500 block of East Douglas when they saw that suspicious-looking vehicle. The officers attempted a traffic stop as the vehicle was pulling into a home in that area, and while speaking with the people inside the vehicle, police discovered that 2 of the passengers were on probation. They then searched the car and drugs packaged for sale were found inside. According to the police report, those arrested were Martin Berlinga, 46, Matthew Maldonado, 28, and Jennifer Leone, 52. Officers then searched the home of one of the suspects. There, police found more drugs packaged for sale and a sawed-off shotgun. They also said that there were 2 children living at the home who had access to both the firearm and the drugs, which hadn't been packed yet. All 3 suspects were booked into the Tulare County pretrial facility on suspicion of possession of drugs for sale, possession of an illegally modified firearm, and child endangerment.
Other news, yesterday, Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill that would require the state to get 100% of its energy from clean sources by the year 2045 in an effort to combat climate change. Currently, the state gets about 44% of its power from renewables and hydropower. The bill, SB 100. It comes as Brown is set to host a climate summit in San Francisco later this week. Opponents of the bill say the action will cause the costs of electricity to increase and would not have a significant impact on global carbon emissions.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed it lately, but I definitely have, and that's that the temperatures are starting to cool down just a bit in the South Valley. In looking at our forecast, we can expect highs to be in the mid-80s by Thursday, with just a slight increase as we head into the weekend. Lows will be in the upper to mid-50s for the rest of the week, and as of yet, no chance of rain is in sight. Hopper?
Patches of unhealthy air quality are affecting residents in the Porterville and Visalia area, while the rest of the South Valley is seeing more moderate conditions. There are currently 3 fires still impacting our air. The Snell Fire in Napa County, the Delta Fire located a couple of miles north of Lakehead near Redding, as well as that Ranch Fire northeast of Ukiah and Hopland, California. Of course, if you do smell smoke or see ash, that's treated as a level 4 or 5, and you're definitely recommended to stay inside.
On September 9th, 2018, at about 6:10 a.m., officers of the Porterville Police Department responded to the 900 block of South Indiana Street regarding the location of a recently stolen cargo trailer. As officers arrived in the area, the trailer was observed being pulled away by a white Ford Explorer. A traffic stop was initiated on the vehicle, however, the driver accelerated and began driving recklessly in an effort to evade officers. The vehicle drove through an adjacent dirt lot and attempted to make a sharp turn, however, due to the reckless nature of the vehicle, it overturned and collided into a fence of a nearby residence. The passenger, later identified as Sean Norden, exited and fled on foot for a short distance before being apprehended. The driver, later identified as Jamie McCool, was initially believed to be pinned in the vehicle, however he was able to maneuver himself from his position and exit without injury. While on the scene, it was also determined a vehicle burglary occurred at a nearby residence, and evidence linked the same suspects to that crime. McCool was also found to be in possession of shaved keys, and both suspects had active warrants for their arrests. McCool and Norden were later booked into the Tulare County Office Jail facility where Norden is being held in lieu of $95,000 bail, and McCool is being held in lieu of a $170,000 bail. Coming up next, we have our chat with Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreaux, but first, a quick thanks to those who are making this broadcast possible, like Danelle Blaine of Blaine Realty, and our friends Gary Williams and Sylvia Mena and family.
It is really, really good to have Mike Boudreaux Mike Boudreaux may be the Tulare County Sheriff, but Mike Boudreaux is also a friend. And it's always a pleasure to speak with him and have him now as a part of this new endeavor of mine, Hopper in the Morning, online. Mike, welcome. I hope that you'll find this easy and pleasant. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm happy to do so, and you are a friend to me as well as the community. So, hey, anything that I can do to help and continue with Hopper in the Morning, we're happy to do so. So, anyway, what's new?
Well, what's new? There's a lot of things, and I hope it's okay if we touch on just a few. But before we go any further at all, the main thing is, and it's certainly, deep in my heart, we know friends and people in New York when 911 hit, and it'll forever be known as 911. And I know that you as sheriff are teaming up with the fire department. Can you just tell us a little bit about this event?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Charlie Norman, he's our Tulare County Fire Chief, a good man, a good friend of mine as well. He and I really like to poke fun at each other a lot, and we just have a good time. But when it comes to business, I can tell you there's none better in the business than Chief Norman. And as you know, what happened, the County Board of Supervisors put us all in the same building. So Chief Norman is literally down the hall from me, which makes it really nice for public service. Makes it really nice for first responder leaders to get together and coordinate and being able to make sure that resources are being deployed appropriately. And if there's ever any issues of communication or what have you, then Charlie and I are right down the hall from each other. So he and I got to talking about September 11th. There's many services that take place throughout the county. And we thought how more appropriate than we represent the county with fire as well as law enforcement to hold our own remembrance ceremony. And so we're doing that coming up. We're hoping that we'll get to hop in on a few other ceremonies throughout the county. I know Tulare has one. I'm going to try and make that as well. But we're having one as our first annual 9/11 event representing county fire, law enforcement, and public service as a whole.
So, Sheriff, let me ask you this. You're talking about this being an annual. I think I heard the word annual. So you definitely want to continue to do this as the years go by.
We do. We want to continue. This will be the first year, but we want to do it year after year. We're hoping that it grows. This year we invited the blood bank. However, we got to them just a little bit too late, and they're committed in other places. But we're going to make sure that we encourage people at this event to donate blood at our local banks. And next year we will have on-site ability for people to donate blood, as well as, show our support. We're going to start off about 8:30. It's not a really long ceremony, but we're going to take a real long moment of silence at 8:46. That's when the towers were struck. And, it shouldn't be too long. It should be about a 20, 25-minute ceremony. But we want to make sure that what we do is remember the hard job that the men and women in law enforcement and fire do every day. But more importantly, we want to remember those men, and specifically who lost their lives, really getting into the heart of danger. And when we remember those people, when we remember those good, hardworking Americans who went into that tower as law enforcement officers, police officers, as well as firemen, not knowing what the future would hold. That's what happens every day, even with local public service, is that we have our police officers, our deputy sheriffs, our emergency personnel, our fire. They run into the heart of danger, not knowing what the future holds. We'll bring remembrance to that, as well as to Americans as a whole. We're proud of being Americans, and we should remember those who lost their lives preserving what we represent.
And, Sheriff, I know that on my program, previously to this one, I've always said, we always honor our military and thank you for your service. But for the last couple of years, I've been saying, how can you not thank not just law enforcement in general, but the fire personnel, especially because it has come to the forefront of everything that's happening in this state of California. But how can you not say thank you for your service, too? Because I think about these people who lost their lives and their families in law enforcement as well as the fire departments. And I'm just so proud of these guys who put their lives on the line when it comes down to almost the entire state being on fire. You agree with that, I'm sure.
I absolutely agree with that. I was talking to Chief Norman just the other day, And, he had been up over 24 hours. He had gone up to a funeral up in northern California where there was a fireman lost. Talking, and as of this last time that he and I talked, there has been 6 firemen lost these fires here in California, which is unprecedented. It's just a terrible thing. But what they're doing is preserving and protecting life and property. And, to our military, God bless the men and women in uniform who are fighting every day, keeping America strong. But on a local setting and internal setting in America, our first responders are those men and women in uniform doing pretty much the same thing, making sure that we're secure and safe in our homes, our churches, our schools. And that's what law enforcement and fire represent on a local level.
I certainly agree with all of that as well. So no doubt about it. And I'm very proud to have you on the program, Mike. First of all, I want you to know that. And hopefully in future broadcasts or programs on this podcast, we'll have Chief Norman on. It's going to be a very short program for a while until we get things rolling. Short is not a word I use regularly, Mike. But anyway, had to lighten it up, Mike. All right.
I like it.
But anyway, we hope to have Chief Norman on and all the regulars back on our program, and certainly good to have you. If it's all right, may I ask you about a couple of other things briefly?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. I understand also from a press release that I've received is that the Purple Heart and the Medal of Valor is going to be awarded 911. So can you give me a little information about that? Who and how and what's going on?
Yeah, we had 2 deputies involved in a very critical incident, very dangerous situation up in the Erosi area. And many times when law enforcement go to a call for service, and what I mean by that is they receive over the radio that they need to be dispatched to a call for help. And so they respond to this call for service where a mother and her husband were very distraught, upset over their son who was in the home, and there was some violence that was taking place. They were very scared, and they gave us information right away that there was a history of mental health, a history of mental health issues. And so when you approach those type of situations, they're very volatile. And so we were standing by outside. They were trying to calm everyone down, and they were basically begging that they go inside and check the welfare of their son, which we did. As the officers go in, it's all on body camera. They're knocking on a door. They're trying to talk to this gentleman in a peaceful way, trying to get him the help that he needs. As they're standing there in a very tight hallway, they were immediately attacked by this subject with a machete. The officer took a strike to the top of the head, receiving a major laceration. He took another strike to the hand and to the shoulder with the machete. The second officer, and they're in really close quarter combat, he doesn't realize that a machete is being struck. He thinks he's being hit, which shows the restraint of these officers. They know they're in close quarter combat, but they still feel as if they can't, wrestle with this guy and use the force necessary to effect that arrest, or at least to affect the safety of the situation, not realizing that there was a weapon being used. The deputy yells out, "I'm being struck, I'm being stabbed." He has a knife. The other deputy now sees that there's a knife. The deputy is getting pummeled with this machete. He can't get to his weapon because of the close quarters. The other deputy is now being struck. He falls back into a position of tactical positioning, tactical advantage, firing his weapon. Unfortunately, this subject in this case did lose his life. But what we wanted to do is the deputy that went in to assess the situation for a call for need, a call for service for need, the first responding deputy goes in and immediately is struck multiple times with a machete. He also receives one friendly round from the officer who was such close quarters to his right hand. I think it was his right hand. And he did get a bullet in that hand. So he definitely should be a recipient of the Purple Heart. We have a local law enforcement Purple Heart equivalent to that of which you would see in the military. When I saw him in the hospital, he had a very significant laceration, deep laceration to the head, and multiple injuries, which could be lifelong from a gun battle. The other officer, he engaged this situation, and what I like to reemphasize is that he used great restraint. The weapon was the choice of last resort. He tried to wrestle with this guy, getting him off his partner. He tried to use other means to get him off his partner. And once he realized a machete was involved, he stepped back and took the action that he needed. He really saved this deputy's life. And so because of that, we're awarding him the Medal of Valor.
Wow. That is just something else. And, after you started talking about it, then I remembered the incident. And I remember thinking, gosh, what a brave guy this man is to do what he's done. And, it's so hard to understand from a lay point, a layperson point, how you folks go into these situations and really want to do this job and help people so much, because there's so much danger in all of the jobs that we've been speaking about, fire and, of course, military and law enforcement especially. So that is an awesome thing that you are doing for that particular person. I think it's great.
Yeah, and we don't hand these out very often. I've been in office 5 years now, sitting as the sheriff. For 4 years as the elected and 1 year as the appointed. I'm now going into my second term. But during that time, I've been here 32 years, and I can only remember that being handed out one other time. If you remember that back in, I'm trying to remember the year, but there was a shooting in Strathmore.
Yes.
And 3 officers were shot, received injuries, and they received the Purple Heart Medal of Valor. And since then, I gave out 2. There was a shooting in Porterville here where a man, one of our deputies, ran back into a house where gunfire was ripping through the hallway, where he grabbed his partner and pulled him out of harm's way. And then again, this time, a very similar situation. But they don't get handed out very easily, and we couldn't be any more proud of our deputies and the men and women who run in harm's way every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sheriff, just a couple more things, if it's okay. The first one being, for a long, long time, we talked a little bit about, now I'm going to try to remember this, run, fight, hide, whatever. I can't remember the 3 perfect words that you came up with. And since then, we've had incidents. Is the program still going? People still asking questions about that? Because I know they have been of me. And so I'm just kind of responding to you for them, if that's all right. How's it going?
Yeah, we're continuing those efforts. I think when we were in interview time before, we've done about 7 of these all across the county. Mm-hmm. The problem is that you don't get a real big turnout at these events. We get maybe 15, 20, 25 people when you're expecting 100, 200 people, because we would think and argue that people really want to know what to do. And we provide them with how to respond to a medical situation, how to stop profuse bleeding. We show them how to actually run. What does run actually mean? And the 3-prong approach is run, hide, or fight. And we touch on those in these seminars. Run really mean is run, mean to kind of start off down the hallway, as far away from there as you can. And you think, well, that's just a simple thing. People know to run. They kind of run, hunker down, and we don't want people to do that. We want them to run as far away as we can. I've taught my son how to get off that school campus when he needs to. Hiding doesn't necessarily mean putting yourself in a closet in a dark space. Hiding actually means to put yourself in a position of concealment that you may have to leap into action and attack the shooter.
Yes.
And so those situations, they become confusing. And then finally, we talk about fight. People really don't know what fight means. When you get into, some people have never been in a fight. And now you may have to fight for your life or the life of those close to you, or even just someone you don't know. What does that fight actually mean? And can you get people to muster up the courage to work as a group? So in those seminars, that's what we talk about. And so we really encourage people to come to those when we have them. It's not just for the sake of having them. We're doing it so that we can train our community in the event that we have them, that they really know how to respond, and that hopefully we can reduce the numbers of really critically injured or fatals.
Yeah, and I think it's a great thought, and it has made me stop and rethink the words themselves. And I think as young people, if they can rethink those words, as you just mentioned, run. Run means I'm getting the heck out of here, but does it really mean
right?
Right? And so that's really, really good. And I'm glad we brought it up again on the program today, because some people still ask, because they still seems to be a lot of this unnecessary craziness in the world. And I'm glad we had a chance to touch on it one more time. And finally, Sheriff, just one more thing, and that is a swearing in of a new undersheriff, huh?
Yes, sir. I'm glad you brought that up.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's not an easy decision for me. It became easier as time went, but I felt like I had lost a loved one when Robin Skiles had retired. And,
Right.
you know, he's a dear friend of mine. He's a family friend. The entire family knows him. He and I and our family go back for 40 years together. And so when he decided to retire, I knew a year ahead of time. And we've been pretty much training, you know, our assistant sheriffs to maybe take that position. And so I've decided to appoint Assistant Sheriff Tom Sigley. He's a friend of mine, but as well, he understands our communities. He understands our farming and ranching, our dairy, our agricultural partners. He really has a vested interest in our communities of Tulare County, and he's a veteran of the agency. And so I'm happy. We're going to be meeting him coming up at 10 o'clock at the Board of Supervisors. And I'm really pleased to be able to put him into that position. He's going to do a great job. We'll invite him to do an interview with you.
Absolutely.
And he's going to do a fantastic job. So it took me about a month and a half or so, or maybe even 2 months since Robin Skiles retired to really fill that seat. But it was necessary we do so. And that opened the doors for an assistant sheriff. And as you know, in our agency, we have a sheriff, an undersheriff, and 2 assistant sheriffs.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 chains of high-level command in that rank. And so we appointed Cherie Lehner. She's been with the agency about 32 years. She knows the agency. Her and I worked patrol together at Porterville Sub for 4 or 5 years, and her career kind of went different ways than mine did, but we always kind of come full circle. I have the utmost trust in both Tom Sigley and Cherie Lehner for those positions. They're going to do the department well. They're going to do my Boudreaux well.
Wow. You know what? I think it's awesome, and I'm actually kind of happy to see, and I know I even run the risk of even saying this because people say, what are you, a sexist opera? No, I'm not. I'm not any of those things. But the fact that I know the sheriff in Fresno, there's the fire department there in Fresno, more and more females are getting involved and are moving up to the top of the ranks, are they not?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and there's you know, as I travel across the state of California, some sheriffs that actually go to the outside. They pick maybe a local police chief, or they've done something to where they just feel it necessary not to go internally. But for me, here with our agency internally, we have some of the best men and women in law enforcement. And so I just felt that internally was a better choice. And our agency is growing so quickly, Hopper. We're going to be, when the new jail goes in, we're going to be about 1,000 people, maybe a little more.
Wow.
We're a big agency, and and that'll come maybe a topic at another time. But with law enforcement of today, public safety of today, it comes with a price tag. It's expensive. And, you know, for the Board of Supervisors, it's important that they continue to dedicate monies to public safety, fire, law enforcement. It's going to be expensive. And so, you know, maybe, again, that's a topic for another day. But we're running at about $105 million budget with the sheriff's office. We have close to 1,000 people. 73% of that money goes to salaries. We're always looking to get our men and women a better paycheck. I did lose some people this year to Fresno. They were offering some pay incentives, but I am happy in the fact that we have a lot of people that want to work here. We had about 1,100 applicants last year for the sheriff's office, so we're never in a lack of getting people. The problem becomes a lack of good qualified people into the job just like this.
Yeah.
And you would argue even, hey, are you finding that people just don't want to be police officers? No, we're actually not finding that. We're finding that people do want to be police officers. They do want to work for their community. The problem is, out of 1,100 people, I think we ended up with about 150 good qualified candidates, and we hired about 35, 40 of them.
That's absolutely amazing. And, well, and I've said this before, and a lot of people who've listened to me over the years have heard me say this, and I've even said it to you, but let's face it, it's a great department when nobody wants to run against the sheriff of Tulare County. So, you know, somebody's doing something right. Sheriff, you have been...
Well,
No, I mean
yeah.
that. I mean that you're everywhere. You're doing the job that, I mean, you are creating programs from everything from this run, fight, hide, whatever it is, and all the way up to the, oh gosh, help me out, the water, the
CSI Smart Water.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The Smart Water. I mean, those are some great ideas, some great things going on that you're on top of. And so I think it's great that people want to work in Tulare County for the sheriff. I think it's wonderful.
No, I absolutely appreciate that. You know, I've been here for 32 years, and as you know, my dad was here for 30.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a good long time where I've had the opportunity to learn our communities, be in our communities. I talk about it all the time, that I've served plenty of beans and unfolded chairs and done a lot of things in our communities. But what I've really grown, and I would hope that a lot of people in our communities, I see it everywhere I go, I love Tulare County. I love the people of Tulare County. I feel like family. And when we have a burglary or a theft or a violent crime occur, I take it very personally, Hopper. I do.
I know.
And so I put all my heart and energy into making sure people know that I'm there, that I care about what's happening, and whatever we can do as a community to work in partnership. Now, what that means is when you talked about, you're everywhere, well, I have to be everywhere so that they know me as Mike. They know Mike the sheriff, and that they can trust me, and that we're going to do everything we can to make those communities better. But we can't do it with law enforcement alone. We have to do it as a partner.
Correct.
And I find that all up and down the county, I don't care if it's Larry, to Porterville, Dinuba, Rosie, Visalia, Goshen, Ivanhoe, you've got good people wanting to do good things. And that's what makes this county so great.
Well, I hope that you'll consider Hopper in the Morning as one of those partners, Sheriff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was going through withdrawals the first week. My morning ritual is get up, take a shower, brush my teeth, eat, take the kids to school, and turn on Hopper. And weekend I was going through withdrawals, but I'm happy to see that you're trying this new endeavor. I really, truly hope that people will listen, and I just know that you have some good guests on there, and hopefully it just works out.
Our guest today, Sheriff Mike Boudreaux, and I'll just call you Mike. Mike, thank you so much for being with us today, and we're going to try to make this more of a regular thing whenever you can make it, and you can bet people will be listening. It's going to be a short program at first, there's that word again, but after that, we continue to add to it. Nobody's going to miss a thing once we get rolling. So appreciate you being on the program, Mike.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you as a friend, and I sure am glad that you considered giving me the opportunity to interview and be one of the first.
You got it. You got it, my friend. Have a wonderful evening with your family, and my best to your mom and dad and all your kids and you as well and your wife, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you, Mike. You've been listening to Hopper in the Morning right here on TalkToHopper.com. Hopper in the Morning, out.
This episode of the Hopper in the Morning Show has been brought to you by the law offices of Mello and Sarsfield, Sierra Vista Exterminators, Rick Leland, Danelle Blaine of Blaine Realty, Sylvia Mena and family, and our friend Gary Williams. We thank you.
You've been listening to Hopper in the Morning on TalkToHopper.com. We thank you for your support and contribution to this project.